Hello and welcome. Welcome to the Earth, Sea, Love podcast. This podcast is for and about women of colour and our relationship with nature. Hosted by me, Cherie Mack. The Earth, Sea, Love podcast is committed to exploring the experiences of women of colour with Mother Nature. We want to provide spaces where the hidden voices in the environmental and conservation conversations can explore their relationship with the natural world. Inspired by our time spent outdoors, we amplify the voices of women of colour, our stories, our conversations, interviews, photography, writing, and artwork. We'll be exploring our legacies, histories, and memories which have had an influence and effect upon how we perceive ourselves within the natural world and within the environmental and climate justice movements. Welcome to the Earth, Sea, Love podcast. The Earth, Sea, Love podcast has been made possible by the funding from National Lottery Heritage Fund. Thank you. So, welcome back to the second part of the episode with Jola. And I took the decision to split this one in half because it was going to be a long one, and also to give you a breather in between the issues that we were discussing in this episode, which is now in two parts. As in parts it can be heavy going, as we are talking about racism, discrimination, microaggressions. And in this episode we continue to get acquainted with Fred, Jola's tumour, and issues within our National Health Service when it comes to black women's bodies. We also start to explore how nature has been a healing force within Jola's recovery and her life going forward here in the UK. We also touch upon those barriers that we face as black women or women of colour when we try to get out into nature, into the countryside, and how we are faced with internal fears, but then also we have to encounter the reception and perception of us while out there. So here's the second part. I hope you enjoy. Thanks again to listening to the Earth, Sea, Love podcast.
And my troubles in the hospital continued when that nurse then said, you shouldn't be in pain. I couldn't walk after 3 days. I was vomiting. I was clearly losing my mind and I was dying. And they were going to keep me there until my uncle came up and said he was going to sue the hospital if I died there. That's when they moved me to Gateshead and I had emergency surgery. I can't imagine if I didn't have him come up to say that. I would be...
No, first, Jola, you got to take credit here. You know your body. You're the expert on your body. And that's what gets lost within the medical profession, because they've trained so long and they know what they're doing. And you are just a layman. They have all the expert knowledge, etc., etc. However, that medical training is not actually trained in caring for Black, Asian, and ethnic minority bodies. Yeah. They are not trained in that. And also, they do not recognize us as having that knowledge of our own bodies, that we know our bodies. And if something's not right, we know, we feel it. And I'm trying to tell you this. Can you listen to me? So you've got to take credit there. Yes, your uncle came up and threatened suing them. So that's their language. They recognize that language. But you did advocate for yourself. You did push for yourself. And that is something that I have learned just recently of us having to be within the medical system, which doesn't recognize us, and having to advocate for ourselves. Because I know, just thinking about my back surgery that I had at the back of last year, I went to the walk-in, and I was told it was just a muscle, a dead muscle. And I was given exercises to move my knee. Yeah, because I had a numb leg and I was a numb backside. And I was saying, no, it's not that. There's something else here.
That's very to do with your back and your spine.
Yeah. They didn't look at that. They just said, go home, or you could go to your GP, because I had put in an appointment with my GP, but it just got so bad, the pain, I couldn't sleep, I was having trouble walking, I couldn't sit properly, I had to sit on one side to keep my one buttock up because it's so sore. And she says, oh yeah, it's just seems to be some inflammation in the muscle, probably a dead muscle, and here's some exercises that will help it move easier. And I thought, well, no, I'm sorry. So I did go to my doctor, and my doctor, he was an Asian man. He was an Asian doctor, and he says, it sounds like sciatica or some kind of slip disc. Why don't you go see a physiotherapist? And as it happened, we had one in our local doctor's surgery, so I booked the next day. She went through the number of symptoms, and then she said, are you having any numbness between your legs? And I says, well, I think it's starting. And she goes, right, we have to stop now. And she red flagged me up to accident and emergency. And again, when they found out it was a bulging disc that was pressing on nerves on my right side, and even though they said, there could be permanent damage here, you could lose function in your bladder and what's the other one? Your bowels. Yeah, your bladder and your bowels. The specialist turned around and says, well, usually, when it's a case like this, we don't actually operate. We just use physiotherapy and pain management. I says, I'm not. What is the potential here of permanent damage? And I says, all you're doing is putting off an inevitable thing that might be happening to me. I says, no, I want the operation ASAP as soon as possible, because I want my quality of life back. And he says, well, there's nerve damage done now. You probably wouldn't get that quality of life back now. And so what would be the point?
What?
It's my life. That is the point.
That's right.
That is the point. So again, I had to be advocate for myself and push. And I was scared to death. Because, this is gone from, okay, I've got a numb leg, I'm getting around, to, okay, you could lose control of your bowel and your bladder here, but we might not do the operation. So, yeah. So, sorry, we're just swapping medical stories here. But that just brought something up for me, because it's actually, this trauma lives in our bodies.
Yeah.
It lives in our bodies. And that was a physical trauma of my back. You've had that physical trauma of cancer. But we also have that psychological and emotional trauma of just going through society and life as a black woman. Yeah. I'm not going to go into any more of my stories, but because of a certain experience I had that was a very public shaming, I dropped out of society, and it was nature that brought me back to myself. So can we flip the switch and let's embrace what I'm calling now radical joy, in the sense of these things happen to us, and we're telling you these things happen to us because it's important that we tell our stories and that you hear our experiences. But they're usually negative. But the positive, and I do lean into the positive of that radical joy and showing up with a smile on my face because I am that kind of person. How has nature helped your healing process? Your physical one, your psychological one, your emotional one?
I would say straight after chemotherapy, we signed up for a program called Climbing Out, and they take you to the Lake District for a week away, and it's like just time to heal, but also to challenge yourself doing things. And it was a lot of my friends from the hospital, and it made me see that the UK does have green spaces that are massive. Not just a little park, and I was with a lot of white people. I'm not gonna lie about that. That made me a little bit, like, oh, I was the only black girl in the whole area with the group and within the place where we stayed. So I couldn't talk about some of my experiences to them because they wouldn't understand. But in terms of when it came to cancer, it was therapeutic. It was really good. I got over my fear of like swimming in deep water without looking at the bottom constantly.
I've been there.
And then after the week, we were brought back home, and I had a panic attack because I had to deal with now the government, the Home Office. It was just a piece of documentation, basically really threatening, saying that, I had to leave and all that kind of stuff. So again, I was cut off from nature. And I was kind of going through all this stuff. I just found out my mom had passed on, so I was getting psychological help, but I was still removed from nature. Then comes the Angelou Centre and you coming to work with the centre. You took us out to a lot of different places that were close by. So it was easier for me to see myself traveling there on my own without having to say, no, I can't travel to the Lake District. I don't have that money because I'm a woman without recourse as well. So I don't have that money. I'm not working. So, it felt like nature was miles away from me. And then you came in and you were like, yeah, we're gonna go out and we're gonna. I remember the what was it called? Where it was Herbal walk where we looked at all the, and I love that because you know what? It reminded me of home and like traditional medicines for healing, and like if you had a bad tummy, you'd drink some fermented clove water. It was horrible, but it sorted you out. And also like chili peppers, and it brought back that memory of when I was having chemo. You would vomit a lot, so they give you anti-nausea injections or pills, and those didn't really work for me. But then I found that eating really spicy chilies from home stopped me. Every time I was gonna but then going on those walks, touching the leaves, seeing the bug, I think it was on our most recent one where I saw a dragonfly again for the first time. So in years since I've left Nigeria, like you have dragonflies, butterflies of different kinds, fireflies, flies in Nigeria. These cute, colorful, beautiful things that just you want to be one of them. But
No.
it was amazing. I felt like the earth was like a tree with roots. Like the earth was welcoming back in. I could breathe again and just let go and not think about any stresses that were back home in my room or what I was gonna do when I got back or oh, you have to deal with this phone call and you have to talk to the solicitor and you have to do all of this stuff. But what if it all goes bad? No, I was there with soil. I was there with grass, trees, stone. I was walking, I was climbing, and sometimes it was harder for me to go as far as I wanted, but I loved it. I loved going out with the other ladies from the center, but also with all the other ladies from the leadership group. And yeah, the Young Women's Leadership Group when we went camping and I did. I was so excited. I remember my first night in the tent, man. Oh, a little loudly.
Well, I was just going to say, we'll not talk about it because, like, we have this running battle. No, it was you that was snoring. No, it was me that was snoring. No, how can it be me snoring if I was awake and I heard you snoring? But yeah,
Yeah.
I so miss it. There are a
Mm,
number of barriers in place that stop Black women
yeah.
specifically to have a
Mm,
closer relationship with nature. And I'd like you to talk, if you don't mind, on what barriers you might have experienced or what barriers you know.
I think there's a lot. So in terms of getting to places financially,
Mm,
you know, I can't walk everywhere
mm,
because I have a hidden disability. So getting to from a city, an urban district, it's really difficult with certain spaces to get there.
mm-hmm.
Um, but also when you do finally go, you find out you're only probably one of the only faces you'll see unless you go with like our group, which is a bit different. People are often like put off or scared because they're concerned about being stared at or, you know, microaggressions that could happen when they're out there in nature. Um, Another issue apart from money and also the fear of the experience of experiencing non-black people is also kind of relating to if you don't know the space, how do you get there? Because normally you're not. I don't know about education here, like in secondary schools and stuff, but in Nigeria, you're not taught about that kind of stuff, about how to get out into nature. So
Yeah.
coming here, their parts, but you want more than a part
Mm,
sometimes. You want to actually go out into rural England. You want to walk into different spaces other than your local park if you have a local park next to you. So where do I go? How do I get there? Um,
information.
yeah, information, but just information from people that you feel safe to contact at times is kind of an issue. Um, for me personally, language isn't an issue, but some of the women that I've supported
Mm,
is language.
mm,
So if they get one of those wildlife trust leaflets, they don't understand. Or if someone says, "Oh, just go on the website," or "Oh, just ring someone up," that's an
mm,
issue that they face because the person on the phone with them might be frustrated
mm,
trying to simplify or um, doesn't understand the fact that this person has I wouldn't say I don't like language barrier. I would say people not communicating with each other properly. So that's an issue. But I don't know if you've looked at the new anti-trespassing law. That's
No.
one thing. It's it's a bill, and I think they're arguing it at the moment, and it's about people kind of it covers everything. So people who are protesting, but also people who are walking.
Mm.
And sometimes you can get lost whilst you're on a hike, you know, and you might enter someone's property without
Mm.
realizing that
Mm.
it's someone's property. So
Mm.
that's another barrier because you're scared, you know. You're
Yeah.
like, oh,
Yeah.
I don't want to break a law. I don't want to get fined, or I don't want to get,
In a
just
prison or anything.
so that's a new thing that they're putting out, saying, you have to kind of know whose land is whose land. And if you don't have that training or support to know what signs to look out for, you
Mm.
could just end up on someone's property.
Mm.
So
Mm.
it's kind of scary in a sense. So partly those issues,
Yeah.
if I can get out and go to the sea, even if I can get
Mm.
out, get there, or go for a walk or a hike, just get some green energy into me. That kind of heals me and calms me down,
Mm.
and it kind of reassures me again.
Our guide and trainer has started leading walks out again.
Mm,
And there's part of me that go, yay, go for it, because I know he's an independent man and it's his
yeah.
own business and he probably needs the money, etc. But it
Mm,
just also, when I see it, my heart leaps and I'm thinking, are you being safe? Are you
yeah.
social distancing? Are you wearing masks? And I know it's more difficult to catch the coronavirus outside, but there's
Mm,
still that fear that follows me around when I'm
mm,
outside. And that's why, as a group, we've decided to postpone our summer activities with
yeah.
our groups of Black and Asian and ethnic minority women and children,
Mm,
so we
mm,
can keep them safe and not feel that we're putting them in harm's way or
yeah.
increasing their risk of
Yeah.
catching it for them. And it pains me to actually do that and
Mm,
to say, no, sorry, we're not going to be meeting up for a while. But
mm,
it's I just want people, and we all want to be safe
yeah.
and healthy. And so if that means that we get our nature connection as individuals and we share it, or if we get that connection through these podcast episodes, then so be it. I feel much better about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Thinking about a year or two down the line when the
Obviously.
vaccine, what are your hopes for the future? What have you got on the horizon? Now, I know that you've mentioned the Home Office, and we won't go into that because I know you can't talk about your case.
Yeah.
But if in an ideal world that you
Mm,
gain permission to stay hassle free,
mm, mm,
freedom, what do you see on the horizon for you and nature and your
yeah.
lowland leadership expedition leader qualification? And you are
Yeah.
outdoor first aid qualified.
Yes.
Are you going to use this? How's it going to support you and others?
I see myself like leading walks, and I'm already doing many things now, like taking some of the ladies to parks and, the beach, which was a few weeks ago. I know, but I was so lucky. I timed it at a time where it wasn't gonna have loads of people.
Oh gosh, that is good timing.
It was hard. It was hard. I said to them, if we saw people there, we weren't going in. And it was really good. They got to de-stress, run into the water, feel the sea, and, you know, reconnect that this is our space too. We deserve to be out here. This is our land. We were born here. We were born on this planet. I wasn't born in Venus or Mars. This is my home too, you know? So yeah, I see myself doing more of that. Hopefully doing more support work where I do get to relate nature with mental health a bit more, with the experiences that a lot of the women and their children have experienced, is very, very, very important to find a space where we can heal. And nature is healing. I'm doing the residential as well. So hopefully with time we can get back and do that. And I think with everything, writing more, doing more support work, getting out more into nature, sleeping out there longer. I want to do that as well. I think within the next 2 to 3 years, hopefully working, studying.
You're still young, aren't you, Jola?
Yeah.
How old are you?
Yeah. I'm 27.
You are still young. You are still very, very young, but you have so much experience and wisdom within you. We're coming to the end, but what I'd like you to maybe is just share some kind of insight that you have learned along this way in your journey of life so far, which has been so difficult and traumatic, but still you are here laughing and joyous, and you are a ray of sunshine. What insight or learning can you pass on to our listeners that sees you well, that keeps you carrying on?
There are two things that pop into my head all the time. It's my mum saying, "Don't let anyone rob you of your joy." And Maya Angelou saying, "Think of the rainbows in your clouds." I put those two together because sometimes it's very difficult, especially mentally. You feel like you can't carry on anymore. And living and carrying on is a form of rebellion against everything else. So you have to keep living, because even though it's hard and it's difficult and you're tired and you're exhausted and you feel like there's no way ahead, there is always that one more step. Just try your best, even if it's the step into nothingness. Keep reminding yourself that you are worthwhile. You know, it's taken billions of years of creation for you to be here, and that is in itself a magical thing. The fact that we're all on this planet at this given time is a magical thing. We will never get back that last second, but we can get back a new second, a new minute, and I think those are the only things. Like, you surround yourself with people who will continue to love you and push you ahead, who will give you their energy and understand that you are you and they love you for you. Your wholeness, even when you are pretty low to when you're pretty high up. Don't let anyone rob you of your joy. Just keep going. That's all I can say. Yeah.
Thank you, Jola. And it's been such an honor and a pleasure to talk to you today.
Oh, yeah, it's been amazing. I've got a big wide smile on my face. I'm like, yes, free time.
It's been awesome. Thank you, Jola. Thank you. Take care.
You too.